All right, everybody, I think we're good to go. You know what? Let me just hit these lights behind me so they don't distract. There we go. Otherwise, all right, everybody, I think we're good to go. You know what? Let me just hit these lights behind me so they don't distract. Don't you love the fact that I can just kind of ad-lib my way through all of these? They are probably the crudest live streams that you can do. But you know, at least you guys get a good flavor of what I have to go through here on a daily basis. I'm probably more technical than most people, but not as good as I should be. So I forget to do things, and I'm trying to juggle a bunch of things at once. So let me just start off by saying a hearty hello to everyone on this Saturday as we watch a lot of weather things going on in the across the atmosphere, and we're going to get to the weather part of it, the weather discussion part of it in just a second. What I'm trying to do maybe is mix things up just a little bit and see what you guys think works and see what doesn't. But among other things, we're going to talk about today is the fact that we've got this risk of severe weather, which the Storm Prediction Center, actually, I think they just updated this. Let me make sure I got the latest map. Yes, they did. They extended the marginal risk further south into North Carolina, and you've got a slight risk for severe weather from north central Maryland on up into south central Pennsylvania to through northeastern Pennsylvania in through upstate New York, with the marginal risk extending out to the coast. I am not overly enthused by this. I think there'll be some strong cells, but I'm not so sure, how much development we're going to get because of the fact that there's a lot of cloud cover in the eastern part of the United States. We are also going to talk about the tropics, where it's getting a little busy with two tropical waves. This is the one that's east of the Bahamas. And we've got a new one that is moving off. That's moved off the African coast. That's just southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. And some weather models are once again spinning things up with all of this. And the National Hurricane Center is raised the probability of the system east of the Bahamas developing to 70%. And we'll have an update out later this afternoon. So we'll probably post something about that on the website. So I'm getting a video ready at the same time I'm talking to you, so we can actually chat here at the beginning. Let me just, and we'll chat at the end after it's over. We're going to also talk about the solar eclipse. I've got a really, it's a good site to have handy. If you want just a quick reference and you want to look at the satellite, an interactive satellite, to see where clouds are, and that's at the weather.gov site. Actually, if you go to weather.gov/OKX, and I'll put the link up here in the chat, you can link to it. Let me get the link, and I'll put it up right now. This will make it easy, and you guys can have it. And there you go. So it's a good thing. It's a nice quick site. It'll give you a countdown clock, answer a few questions, or and of course the interactive satellite, because clouds are going to be an issue. All it takes is one cloud to move over the sun, and your eclipse experience is ruined. So you may want to go to a part of the country where climatologically the chances of clear skies are pretty high. There are not a whole lot of places like that. Most of those places are going to be in the west. So let me just say hi to Delvin, Hosea, welcome, and Marcus Vincent, and Jason Schaefer, and let's see, and Nathaniel. We've got Ghost. All right, so let's start off with Ghost's commentary. The tropics have been super quiet this year on the Atlantic side. They have not. They have not been quiet. We have had 6 tropical storms, 6 named storms. And I can tell you, I remember seasons past where you don't even get to the 6th named tropical storm until the end of September. Okay. The fact that a tropical system has not, we've had a couple of tropical storms impact land, Cindy and Emily, and of course Don and Brett impacted the islands. But no, we haven't had a hurricane make landfall in the United States. We just had one make landfall in Mexico with Hurricane Franklin. But the season actually it has been active. We are above normal in terms of overall activity. Normally, we do not see our first hurricane till around August 9th or 10th, which is exactly when Hurricane Franklin developed. So that is right on time. And the National Hurricane Center has actually increased its forecast, and we talked about this yesterday, actually increased its forecast of total activity from 12 to 16 to 14 to 19, and raised the number of major hurricanes from 2 to 3. So we are above normal, and I'm thinking that at some point at some point in the month of September, I think we're going to have there's going to be a stretch where we're going to have 2 or 3 tropical storms and hurricanes running around all at the same time, and pulling our hair out of our heads trying to stay on top of it all. So gear up, because it's coming. This first part of August is more active than July, obviously, but it is not. It's really the last part of August through the first 15 days of October that you really rev up the tropical development, and after that, it just kind of drops off. And of course, statistically, September 10th is the actual day peak of hurricane activity when you look and average storms out over the long term. Remember, folks, don't confuse above and below normal activity with storms that make landfall, because you can have an absolutely quiet below normal year, and we have had many of those where one major hurricane or even 2 hurricanes that form wind up hitting land in the United States. In terms of total number of storms, they may have been a below normal year, but a hurricane strike is different from the hurricane activity. That's right, Delvin. Prime time, August 22nd through October the 14th. That is the stretch of days. So let's see what I'm going to be curious to see this thing off the East Coast, what it winds up doing after all the attention some of the models have been giving it. And again, let me remind everybody, models do have a tendency. Some of them, especially the Canadian model, has a tendency of wanting to spin up absolutely everything that moves, and we have to really have a doubtful eye over weather models when they do this sort of thing. When they're in the short range, certainly they're a lot better. But when you're looking at beyond the 5-6 day period, and even in the shorter range, we saw how the models went nuts. The models went nuts last week with this first wave, having it develop into a hurricane within 72 hours, and it never happened. It never even came close, never even got to depression status. It stayed very weak. DO, the GFS shows an out-to-sea track, and the run before that had it closer to the coast. Focus not so much on the track. Focus on the upper air pattern that's in play. And while you have a trough, the trough wants to be in the east and the ridge wants to be in the west. If that trough is too broad, if it's too weak, if it's too far east, and you create more of a westerly flow rather than a southerly flow along the east coast, it's going to take things out to sea. The timing of a storm to coincide with a deep trough along the east coast is rare, and thankfully that's why we don't see hurricane hits every single season, and sometimes we can go many years without hurricane hitting wherever you happen to be. So just bear that in mind. And we are going to, at this point now, as you give me just 1 second, I'm going to set it up. We're going to switch over to the weather video. And so just stand by and welcome everybody on this Saturday afternoon. Let's start off with the solar eclipse, which is coming up on Monday, August 21st. And this is the National Weather Service website. If you go to weather.gov, you can link to this, and I'll put the link up in the chat for you. This is a handy site to have, so you can have a nice little countdown clock. But you also have an interactive satellite here. You can see the path of totality, and you can zoom in on the area where 100% coverage will occur, and you can look to see who has clouds and who doesn't. Now, obviously, this is the current satellite picture and not the one from 8 days from now, but at least you can get an idea for your local area during the day what is around you in terms of cloud cover, because that's going to be very, very important. And I would suggest, based on what we were seeing with the long range, that areas that I think are typically clear at this time of year are not going to have too much of a problem. But there will be some areas that are going to have cloud issues. I think the east is probably going to be one of those places. So we'll see how the long range takes us with regards to this. Now let's run through what's happening. First off, we do have this tropical wave that is east of the Bahamas moving northwestward. And to me, it is showing some signs of organization this afternoon. You're seeing some cirrus outflow on the east, north, and west side. Maybe even, I don't really see too much turning, but it might be the beginnings of some kind of mid-level circulation. Hard to say. Sometimes it's hard to tell on some of these satellites when you don't have enough images going forward. So this is a relatively short loop. It's only 6 hours or so. 7 hours. So we'll go on the wider shot. You can see it here. Look at that outflow here up to the northwest and to the west and to the northeast. So this thing may yet become a tropical depression or maybe even a tropical storm. In the meantime, by the way, we have this strong wave that's moved off the African coast that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. Weather models are once again spinning it up. Now, whether that's real or not remains to be seen. The European didn't do too much with it. The GFS in its usual way and the Canadian both did. In fact, they both have it as tropical storms within 3 or 4 days. So we're going to know pretty quick whether the model is going to be right with this, or is it going to be a repeat of what just happened with this wave, where the model developed a hurricane and took it up the East Coast on a couple of runs, and we knew that was nonsense. And it also developed it very quickly in the tropical Atlantic, and that didn't happen. And one of the things we're going to have to look at, we do have this upper low in the high layers of levels of the atmosphere to its north. The shear probably doesn't extend far enough south to cause it any issues, but there is dry air to the north and northwest of the intertropical convergence zone. So we're going to see how this wave reacts to it. Dry air has been a problem. Has been a continuing problem for the last number of weeks in different respects, and I'll show you, the extent of the dry air. When you look at the water vapor imagery, it's usually where you see this, kind of brownish stuff, the brownish color that shows up. That is all dry air, and some of that has got Saharan dust in it. So that impedes development because the system trying to develop a circulation pulls that dry air in. And as we know, tropical systems are not fans of dry air. With regards to the system here in the east, even if it does develop, all the weather models, and this makes total sense given what's going on in the eastern part of the United States, take it well offshore, north and then northeastward. If it does develop into something, it may kick up the surf for a few days along the northeast coast and the New England coast, but that would be the only impact that we're going to get out of all of this. So the Hurricane Center will be updating this in short order, so let's see what they say later this afternoon. In the meantime, we do have a weather front approaching, and the Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe weather from Pennsylvania on up northeastward into upstate New York. A marginal risk extends to about New York City through southern New Jersey, down into Delaware, Maryland, and eastern Virginia, and also extends on the west side of the slight risk, a narrow area, through west central Pennsylvania. The slight risk goes down to south central Pennsylvania and north central Maryland, the southern edge of it. But a couple of things going on. When you look at the satellite, there's a lot of clouds. And we had a rain and thunderstorms move through last night. And sometimes when that happens, close to the arrival of the next weather system, that the atmosphere basically gets robbed of all its moisture and energy. Uh, I can tell you here where I am, which is near the coast, it doesn't feel like thunderstorm activity. It's not that humid outside. It's been cloudy all day. There's been limited daytime heating going on, if any at all. So that might be certainly an indication that when these thunderstorms, which probably have a better chance firing up across Pennsylvania in the inland areas from Pennsylvania on southward into Maryland and Northern Virginia, that when they near the coast, they're going to wind up weakening. And I think that's where the weather models are with this. If we, I'm going to start with the HRRR. The HRRR model this afternoon, which is the shortest of the short range models that we look at, is the only one that's really bullish on the idea of some thunderstorms here. And even from the standpoint of bullishness, when I say bullish, I mean that it would be it would support the idea of severe weather. There's the from earlier, these are the rains from overnight that moved out, and here's the line that it develops, and you can see it actually has more to the south, even though the Storm Prediction Center has severe risk up north and south. It kind of splits it, and it forms two lines, one across upstate New York, and then into southern Vermont, where it has a slight risk of severe weather, and then the second area gets fractured from New Jersey, south of Route 78 into southeastern Pennsylvania, on up into Maryland and Virginia. And then as it all approaches the coast, it just falls apart and dies. So the other models, if we look real fast at the NAM doesn't do anything with this at all. Let me just wait for all the maps to load. And we can start with the initial. And you can hear the thunderstorms that it develops. I mean, it really doesn't do much with it. It just seems like I'm just underwhelmed by this severe weather risk today. I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking that it just doesn't look to me like it's a strong severe weather risk that's being indicated. While we're here, you know what? Let me just pull up the Storm Prediction Center's homepage. And we can maybe see, they haven't issued anything that says, imminent severe thunderstorm watch coming for anybody. So at least for the time being, they seem to be unconcerned from that respect. All right, so let's quickly take a look at what we are going to what we're going to expect for the long range. And we will do the GFS with this. I'll make it a little wider. Whoops, too wide. And there we go. And the maps are loading. Okay, this kinking you see here, how the isobar comes up from south to north and then turns east to west, there's probably a weak open surface low that is east of the Bahamas. That's a reflection of the tropical system. Here's our cold front that moves on through, and that front is going to stall out, and it's going to stall out right about there, like this. So anything that does develop here has to go northeastward. The front is not going to be backing up as a warm front. We don't have any kind of, we're missing a strong southerly jet, so that isn't going to, that's not there. So there's nothing here that suggests that this thing could move up the East Coast anyway. So that's going to be up and out. I think the weather is going to be nice for Sunday and Monday. And as we move through next week, there's probably going to try to get a little sticky along about Tuesday. But then there's another weather front, a weak one that comes through, kind of sets up an onshore flow. And then late in the week with another warm front, cold front coming through, some showers and thunderstorms. In fact, it even wants to drop a surface low off the New Jersey coast as we go into next Friday night and Saturday. This is very similar to the kinds of setups that we've been having all along for the last 2 months or so. Here is the next tropical system, the one that's moving off the African coast, which the GFS on today's run keeps it well offshore. And I think that really does make sense given the upper air pattern that we're going to have. Unless we get that strong, some kind of strong north-south southerly jet, it's going to be very difficult to move to bring anything up the East Coast, or for that matter, even in moving it west into the Gulf of Mexico, or taking it straight across the Caribbean. That would seem to me to be somewhat problematic. And the issue, as this all loads up, we'll move it along. There's your troughing in the east. Actually, the model does bring a deep trough into the west for the early part of this coming week before it lifts it out, and then the ridge tries to build back. But if you notice the extent of what the jet stream flow is, it's basically west to east across the United States, and the westerlies extend pretty far to the south, down almost to South Carolina. The ridge in the Atlantic is there, but it's not that strong. It's kind of narrow. So if there's any kind of weakness, this system is going to wind up responding to it by turning more north with time. And indeed, that's what the model does. In fact, if you look at what's going on in the North Atlantic, you've got this, this double structured vortex sitting out in the North Atlantic from east of Greenland and then back over to Newfoundland. That kind of keeps the jet far to the south. So again, I would say that anything that comes out of there, at least from the standpoint of what we're seeing at the moment, is going to wind up turning. Going to the longer term, the next question is whether are we going to get another one of these ridges to pop up in the east. And the models continue to try to hint at that possibility in the long range, but they've been doing that for a week now, and we seem to, as we get closer, suddenly there's a trough where there's a ridge. So we're going to switch now over and chat for a little bit, so just stand by while I switch myself back into the picture, and we'll be setting it up right now. We'll talk. Setting it up right now. We'll talk. Don't you love my technical prowess? It's just horrible sometimes. I have good days and I have bad days, and today was not a good one. I forgot to center that video, so I apologize for that. You didn't get to see the full scale of the maps near the beginning, but I will make sure that that's correct the next time. Ghost in the nutshell. Thanks, Delvin, for letting me know about the audio. The Northeast is only one of the areas in the world where we can get all types: blizzards, droughts, to hurricanes. Awesome if you love weather. Yeah, absolutely. The Northeast, the wide variety of weather is a lot of fun for weather watchers because you get it all. You don't get any one of those things very often, but you do get them from time to time. And at least when you're done with one season, if you're a weather geek, you can look forward to the next one. So as soon as hurricane season starts to wind down, actually before, because people are already asking me about it, and I've already given my answer, and that is I'm not going to answer it. Already asking about the next upcoming winter. Let's roll through the next 2 months first before we start worrying about that. Do I think 99L will become a tropical storm, Gert? Tyler, it may very well be. It may. The NAM actually does that and even brings it to almost a minimal hurricane, believe it or not, while it's off the southeast coast of the United States. The global models, the GFS, does not do that. The Canadian, I believe, did. Let me double check. Of course, that doesn't mean anything if the Canadian did it, because the Canadian, as I've always said, spins up everything that moves. I just looked at the Canadian even out to the long range, and it does that. Yeah, actually, the Canadian does make it into a tropical storm. The European overnight had a reflection of it, but it didn't really do too much with it. You can follow it along by looking at where the kink in the isobar actually closed the low center off. I think there's a pretty good chance that you'll get this to become at least a tropical depression and maybe even a tropical storm. Going beyond that might be pushing it. The proximity of the front to the north, there might be some wind shear issues as it gets further north, and an issue of time. But this is the time of year sometimes to get them off the southeast coast over the warm water and they just rev up. So, and there hasn't been any storms there, so it's not as if there's been upwelling going on. So the water's pretty warm. Yeah, Delvin, this is, if we're talking about I actually didn't like the 500 the way it looked in terms of the 6Z GFS. It still said to me that the GFS was probably way too far west with it anyway. But it's got to develop first. We're going through an exercise of just just a futile exercise here because we don't even know if this thing is going to wind up developing or if it's going to wind up turning like 99L did. Tony, I know it's it's Tony Mangiello. I'm guessing it's you, Tony. I do both YouTube and Facebook. Those of you who are on Facebook or not on Facebook, I do also do chats on Facebook. I'm going to replay this live stream on Facebook shortly, and I'll have a chat afterward. One of the constraints with all this is trying to find all the time because it does take time to set all this up, and you've got all these different platforms that you got to run it on. So I could wind up sitting here all day just to run one video, and it's a tough thing to do, but I do the best I can. Thank you. Oh, Mondero. Okay, so it's not the Tony I'm thinking. All right, but welcome anyway, Tony. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the kind words. And I hope you come back often because we've been trying to hit these live streams at least once a day. I delve in. I'm guessing about the wind shear, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be some shear conditions up the East Coast with that front. Great, Harrison, National Weather Service Cooperative Observer, Tony M. Okay, great, thank you, and tell your friends that I'm on here live streaming so they can join and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a shameless self-promotion. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and this way you'll get notified every time these live streams come on, and you're all set. All right, so look, let's see how this severe weather plays out late this afternoon and this evening, and on the website we will update you on the developments with regards to 99L, if it's going to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm. I don't think the Hurricane Center updates their thing at 2 o'clock. I did, by the way, whoever asked for the water temperatures image, I did put it up for you. Let me see if I can do that on the screen now for everybody. Hang on one second, just bear with me. Let me get to one of the things is you got to set these things up graphically. So it'll just take me a moment to do that. You can hear me, but you can't see me, but you'll see me shortly. So just stay there. I know what I'm doing. Actually, I don't know what I'm doing. I do know what I'm doing. I'm doing it wrong. All right, let's hang on. It's coming. You can hear me type on the keyboard. Oh my God. Right, hang on there. It's almost there. We're almost there, folks. It's a gorgeous black screen, I know. Here we go. And beautiful. Okay, so this is the national. If you go on nhc.noaa.gov and you go to data and tools and click on satellite and go all the way down, one of the last options that's on there at the bottom are graphical representations of water temperature. And let's use the brown. The darkest brown is where 77 degrees lies, and the threshold for tropical storm development is at about 78 or 9. And you can see, but let's use 77 as a sake of argument. The darker red is the Gulf Stream of 30 degrees Celsius water, and you can see there's a strip of that runs off the southeast coast on up through the Carolinas and then northeastward out into the Atlantic. Right there is the Gulf Stream. So that would be the edge. You could have tropical storm development pretty much anywhere in this area. Notice, by the way, the darker browns that extend off the coast of Africa, you got even colder water as you get here. These are the Canary Islands. Here's the Cabo Verde Islands. But just north of the Cabo Verde Islands, the water does kind of chill off a bit. And, you do have some pockets here where the water temperatures are not that warm. I have to go look I'm not going to pull the graphic now because it'll just take me too long, but I have to go look to see how this is with respect to normal. But you can, you can see that at least in the source regions, even in the tropical, down in the tropical Atlantic, in the lighter brown here, you have water temperatures that are running at about 84 or 5, and through the Caribbean, just having its tropical storm go through got upwelled, so the water actually is cooler there. And notice the water in the Western Gulf and through most of the Gulf of Mexico is 30 degrees Celsius or higher. So that's all conducive to support a major hurricane. You'd have a few pockets off the Bahamas and east off the Florida coast, and another pocket that's sitting on its way toward Bermuda, which is right up here. But other than that, the water temperature profile is probably what you would expect for this time of year. But I want to I'm going to want to look at the departure map, and he's here, by the way. We haven't seen Kovu in a long, long time. He lost a little weight because he's got some teeth issues, so he's not eating his hard food like he used to. He gets a soft can a can of soft food in the morning, and then hard food after that. But he hasn't been able to chew the hard food. But I think whatever's going on with his teeth might have gotten better, because he did sneak into the cabinet last night. Don't think I didn't see you. He did sneak into the cabinet last night and took some hard food. So he gets around, my cat. Good. He's very, very gentle, and he's a good boy. Let's see. Tony, WPC Met Watch issued of MPD for flash flooding just west of the metro for parts of PA and northern New Jersey. Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. One of the things, the signatures with these thunderstorms now, really that they're producing more along the lines of heavy rain and flash flooding than anything else. So these thunderstorms late this afternoon into this evening, I think, are going to be probably bigger rain producers, but they are also going to be moving at a clip. So I don't know how much time they're going to have to actually, produce enough rain for flooding, though there has been enough rain from the overnight, so the ground's pretty saturated. And yes, thank you, Tony. I love the cat too. Your wife has 13 cats. Oh my God. No, one is enough for me. He's work to take care of. Plus, I have my dog, who's Cody, who's blind and deaf and has a few other issues, and he's just laying down sleeping like he usually does in the afternoon. But yeah, he's a very good little puss. All right, so you know what? I got to call it a day, folks. Check out the website. I'll have everything updated later on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, thank you for being here, and thank you for being on the live stream and for being patient with my lack of technical ability today. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so you hear about when these live streams are going to go up. I will do another one during tomorrow. I'm thinking tomorrow I might move it into tomorrow evening and do it more for prime time than during the day. I doubt weather conditions are going to warrant it. Plus, I just remembered I'm going fishing tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock, so I'll probably do it after 9 p.m. All right, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow.